If you are more advanced, you're an experienced artist, you've been drawing for a long time, this list is not for you. But if you just got started, or if you haven't even gotten started yet and you just want to know, what supplies do I need in order to get started drawing? This video is for you.
Hey, welcome back to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today.
First thing you got to think about is money. Art supplies cost a lot of money, especially if you're getting really good ones. For a beginner artist, I highly recommend you set a budget for yourself. You ask yourself, how much money do I want to spend on this? You could spend as little as $5, as much as $500 on art supplies in one go. And if you're just a beginner, then it doesn't really matter where you fall on that spectrum, because a person who invests $5 is going to begin at the same place as somebody who invests $500. So if you're just a beginner, you don't need to worry about getting the best of the best of the best, most expensive art supplies. You just need to get what's right for you and what fits your budget. Now, I want to be clear before I go on with my list of supplies that I recommend that for a beginner artist, there are very few supplies that I would suggest a specific name brand for. Most of the supplies that I recommend for a beginner artist, it doesn't matter. If you're a beginner, it doesn't matter what brand you get, because a pencil is a pencil is a pencil. They're all going to do the same thing in the hands of a beginner. As you get more advanced, then certain name brands might be better than others for certain uses. But as a beginner, you really don't need a specific name brand unless you have a teacher who is working directly with you to help you understand the benefits that you get from that specific higher quality art supply. So I hear you asking, if you said I can get my art supplies for $5 or less, what exactly am I going to get for that much money? Well, all you really need to get started is a pencil and a sketchbook. That's it. So let's start by talking about sketchbooks. When you look for sketchbooks, you don't have to look for this exact sketchbook. If you do want this one, I've got a link in the description. But everybody has their own needs when it comes to sketchbooks. What is it that works for you? Here's some things to think about when you're looking for a sketchbook. The first thing to think about is the size of the sketchbook. Some people want a larger sketchbook. Some people want a smaller sketchbook. It really depends on how you're going to carry it around. Some people like to shove it in a backpack or a pocket. Other people like to put it in their purse. Think about how you're going to be carrying your sketchbook and what makes sense for you. If you're going to be throwing it over your shoulder in a backpack, you could probably afford to get something bigger. But if you're going to be shoving it in a pocket, you might want something smaller. This is a pretty standard size. It is 12 inches by 9 inches. You can also get 8.5 by 11, which is a standard letter-sized paper. Or you can get half this size, 6 by 9, or even smaller, like 3 by 5 or 4 by 5 inches. So look around and see what sizes are available and what works for you. The second thing to think about with your sketchbook is the binding. Sketchbook bindings come in three main categories. The first type of binding is glue or sometimes tape, and these sheets are very easy to tear out. The second type of binding are those spirally ones. I know there are some people who really like those, but I really have had bad experiences with those spirals. Those little metal spirals that wrap around. When you shove it in a backpack, which is where I normally carry my sketchbook, you shove it in a backpack and those spirals get all scrunched up and bent around each other. And then when you try to fold the papers around, they get all scrunched into those, and they just never work for me. Now, both those spirals and the ones that are bound by glue or tape are usually pretty cheap. But if you want to spend a little bit more money and get something a little nicer and fancier, you can get one that's what we call book bound, where in here, there's actually stitching to hold all the different sheets of paper together. And those that are book bound typically tend to have a hard cover like a book. The next thing you should look for is how many sheets of paper does it have? This one right here has 100 sheets of paper. Now, sketchbooks typically come in sizes of 100 sheets or 50 or sometimes even as small as 15, but in my experience, the number of sheets of paper does not usually correlate to the cost. I've seen a lot of 100-sheet sketchbooks that are way cheaper than 15-sheet sketchbooks. What's up with that? So when you're thinking about how many sheets you want, think about how often you're going to use it and think about how you're going to be drawing in it. If you've got larger pages where you plan to draw multiple things on each page, then you don't need as many pages. Or if you've got smaller pages where you know each drawing is going to fill up the whole page, then you might need a thicker book with more pages. Or maybe you should think about how often you're going to be drawing in this book. Are you going to draw it every day, once a week, twice a month? And that might also be a determining factor on how many pages you need in that book. And quite possibly the most important thing to think about when you're choosing a sketchbook is what kind of paper is in that sketchbook. This one right here says sketch in really big letters. What does that mean? That means that the paper in this book is designed for sketching. If it said drawing, then that usually means it's designed for charcoals and pastels. Or if it says markers or pen and ink, that means it's a smoother paper that's designed for wet mediums. Or if it says watercolors or acrylics or oil or paint or anything like that, that means that it has some special sizing, which I'll talk about in another video, that coats the paper and makes it less water absorbent for those wet mediums. But if you're just getting started, you just want sketch paper, maybe drawing paper, but you don't need to go out and spend a bunch of money for those fancier papers. Sketch paper usually is cheaper and easier to find. And once you've chosen a sketchbook, all you need is something to draw with. If you are a beginner artist and you're just starting, a number 2 pencil is all you need. It's got lead. It's got an eraser. What more could you ask for? Oh, I know what you could ask for. You could ask for a pencil set. This one ranges from HB to 2B to 4B. What do those mean? The pencil that says 4B is really soft lead, which means the lead comes out of the pencil easier, and that just means it makes darker marks. The one that says HB is exactly the same as a number 2 pencil. So if it's in your budget, a pencil set like this can help you get a wider range of values in terms of lightness to darkness, but it's not 100% necessary. Get it if you got the money for it? Don't if you don't. And what about erasers? Well, if you got yourself some number 2 pencils, they've got erasers on the back, but especially for beginners, those erasers tend to get used pretty quickly, so sometimes it's handy to have a separate eraser, especially if you've got a pencil set like this, which doesn't have erasers on the back. Why not? What? The reason artist pencils don't have an eraser on the back is because having your eraser separate from the pencil can help avoid embarrassing situations where you flip your pencil over and start trying to erase, but the eraser's gone and used up, so your metal thing on the back of the just scratches up your paper and ruins your artwork completely. No, that's never happened to me before. Yeah, it has. So even if you've gotten yourself just regular old number 2 pencils, it's handy to have a separate eraser, but it's not really necessary. This one right here is a white vinyl eraser. You could also get a pink pearl eraser, which is the same as the kind on the back of your pencil. I did do a whole video on different types of erasers, so if you want to check that out, go ahead, but it's really not necessary. If you get these pencils and you like these erasers, get a pink pearl. It's what you're used to anyway. And the last question is, how are you going to carry all these supplies around? If you got more than 1 pencil, or you've got an extra eraser or 2, or you've got some pens that you want to throw into the mix, you can just get a regular pencil box like you would use in grade school. And those just offer a little bit of protection for both your supplies and whatever bag or backpack you put them in. You could spend fancy money on a fancy art bin. Or you could just shove your pencil and your sketchbook into a backpack and be done. And now that we've discussed all the supplies you need, what do you do with them? I personally take my sketchbook everywhere I go. Sometimes it's a big sketchbook if I'm carrying my backpack with me. Sometimes it's a little sketchbook if I just want something I can fit in my pocket. But no matter where I am, I always have something to draw with and something to draw on. But that may not be right for you. Some people really want to get into it, really want to learn, they really want to just jump right in, and they want to take their sketchbook everywhere they go, draw everything they see, and just art every day, all day. And that's great! But it doesn't work for everybody. So think about your own schedule and try to find a way to work sketching into your schedule. Some people like to sketch at night before they go to bed, maybe in a diary. Some people like to sketch while they're eating their lunch or their breakfast, or some people like to take a little 30-minute break during the day and go sit outside to sketch. Some people like to sit down at their desk and sketch. I personally have an alarm set on my phone for 5 o'clock every morning just so I can get up and draw first thing every day. Ultimately, what you need to do is find a schedule that works for you, find some materials that work for you, and find some ideas that work for you. Sketch what you like. Don't let other people tell you what you have to sketch. But if you ever get to the point where you don't know what to sketch, ask for help. Ask people for advice. Ask your friend. Ask your mom. Ask your neighbors. Say, hey, what should I draw? Or just look at something. Randomly, just look down at your feet. What's on the ground around you? What's on the table next to you? Just pick something, random object. Because the more you draw those little random nonsense objects, things that don't matter, the more you grow your skills, and then you'll be better at drawing the things you are really interested about later. But keep in mind, the more you draw, the more you improve, the faster you get better. So what are you waiting for? Go check the link in the description for all the different supplies I've recommended here. Get yourself a sketchbook, some pencils, and get out there and start drawing. And while you're at it, use your cell phone to snap some pictures of it. Send them to me at myart@mrnew.com. I'd love to see what you're making. And I promise I will not share these pictures with anybody else unless you give me permission to do so. So if you just want some feedback, tell me you want some feedback. If you want me to share it in a video, tell me you want me to share it in a video. I'd love to help you grow. I'd also love to share your art.
If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe, and after you subscribe, you can hit the little bell icon to get notifications when new videos are published. If you know any other budding artists who might benefit from my videos, please share. And as always, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.